All right, counselors, please head to Echo 360 to record your attendance. The session ID is on the slide. Okay, thank you, counselors. All right, we will now move on to the approval of the agenda. So I'll just give a little bit of an overview before we vote to approve it or not. The agenda includes the following items. We will start with approval of the agenda and minutes, chair comments from myself, an update on Western's proposed partnership with private academy for international students provided by the provost vice president academic. Then we will have executive presentations, a board of directors report by Mr. Barry. We will then move into our 4 action section of the meeting, which will include the motion to approve executive reports, the motion to approve the anti-gender based and sexual violence position paper, the motion to approve amendments to advocacy steering committee terms of reference, and the motion to approve amendments to bylaw number 1. Before we move to approve the agenda, are there any questions regarding the agenda of this meeting to be made at this time? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections to the agenda? All right, can I please have a mover to approve this agenda, Councillor Sharma and Councillor Matsukawa as the seconder? Okay, we will now move to Echo 360 to vote on the approval of the agenda. The motion passes and the agenda is approved. We'll now move to approve the minutes from our previous council meeting. Can I please have a mover to introduce the motion? Councillor Bennett, and the seconder will be Councillor Thompson. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Are there any amendments to the minutes to be made at this time? Are there any objections to the minutes? Okay, we will continue with the minutes as approved. Please move to vote in Echo 360. Okay, the minutes from our last meeting pass. We'll now move on to comments from the chair. So thank you everyone to everyone who attended our council dinner on March 13th. Welcome again to the incoming counselors who are joining us today. Just as a quick reminder for the incoming counselors, since the new council has not been ratified yet, speaking rights are reserved for current counselors and members of council or resource members of the USC if speaking rights are deferred to them. Incoming council members, you are welcome to share comments during the question and comment period for community members. As a reminder, there will not be a part 2 for this meeting. Instead, next week we will be having our 2025 Council Gala on April 2nd at 7 p.m. It'll be in this room. We'll have dinner. There will be a lot of food, including those grilled cheese and tomato shots that we had at correspondence dinner. Shout out Treya, we were inspired. And then as well as a mac and cheese bar and a bunch of other food. So please RSVP by tomorrow night at the latest is when we've asked for everyone to RSVP by. Yes, and you can do that at the recess, just as a reminder. Okay, some remaining dates to be aware of. Just to be clear with the rest of the legislative calendar for the council. So on March 31st, that is when the call for agenda items for the April meeting will close. So that is next Monday. April 2nd, we have the council gala. The week of April 7th to 11th, we will have standing committee meetings. And then the following week, we will have the ACUSC meeting, followed by our April full council meeting, which will be on Zoom on April 23rd. So just as a reminder that your standing committee meetings, it's the discretion of your committee as to whether those are held in person or online for April, but the full council meeting will be held online on Zoom. And then the last meeting that we have together as a council will be our annual general meeting, which will be on May 7th, and that will also be on Zoom. Please attend because we require a quorum to be able to de-ratify and ratify council. The singing that you hear outside downstairs is part of Korea Day, which is taking place in the Mustang Lounge. So in case you were curious what that is, that's what the sounds are coming from, is the Korea Day event. Okay. And with that, we can move on to our presentations. A reminder that questions can be asked following each presentation. Please avoid asking questions during a presentation. We will start with Western University's Provost Vice President Academic, Florentine Strelchik. President Kalajian.
Sorry, just as a point of information, I really just want to thank the provost as well as deputy provost for coming here today. As I mentioned in my note on Slack, it's very atypical to have senior administrators here. And so I think that just goes to show you how important this is. So I know I sent a brief to you all. We're going to get a lot more information in this presentation right now. But now it's time to ask questions and bring that back to your constituencies. Okay, so thank you again, and we're excited to hear it.
Thank you. Will you advance the slides or will I? Yes, I'll just wave. Thank you for having me. I'm Florentine Strelchik. I'm the Provost and Vice President Academic, I'm the Chief Academic and Chief Budget Officer of the university. I've never been here before at your meeting. You guys are so organized, electronic votes, and there's name tags and food and everything is, you have speakers and much more organized than some of our meetings, I would say. So, wow. So I'll come back anytime. So, thank you for inviting me to the council meeting today. I wanted to talk to you about the big discussion on campus currently, which is the introduction of the possibility of striking a potential partnership with Navitas that we discussed first in Senate in February. And we have had a number of conversations across campus since then, consultations. We are taking back questions and ideas and suggestions from everyone. And today I want to focus on giving you some information on this third-party provider we potentially could be working with, and then also talk to you about how that would impact the students and student experience. And maybe that's when we'll move. Yeah. So you may know that our strategic plans, almost all of them, call for increasing our international enrollment to 20%. All great universities have international faculty, international students, international partnerships, and that one of the multiple approaches we are exploring currently is to partner with a third-party provider, education provider. It's important to note that a third-party provider typically serves two functions, and you can see them there. It says recruitment and education. So recruitment means we would be able to tap in their expansive networks that would to recruit students from across the world, from a number of countries, and attract students from a much broader range of places across the world and become that really multicultural campus that we want to be and that we are already in the process of becoming and that we want to maintain. Education is the second part to it. An international education provider quite often operates and what's called an international college, where students spend the first year of their degree program and take a range of both academic Senate-approved courses in the programs that they want to study, plus non-academic courses. And I'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about how that actually looks like. The non-academic piece, I have a number of slides for you on the student experience. So unlike traditional recruiters that most universities work with, which focus really only on bringing students here, an international education provider like the one we want to work with remains engaged with students beyond admission, supporting their academic journey and integration into the university. So a business model, people have asked that a lot. Not sure if you're interested in it. Obviously, me as a chief budget officer, it's obviously important. So that working with a company like that is built on a revenue sharing model where students pay a first year tuition to the college, and then it gets back shared with the university in the form of royalties. So I'll share how that could work at Western. I'll share in a minute. So if this partnership were to move forward, Western would have full academic oversight of the international college. That's what the provider, also the partner, always would want it, because their reputation depends on it, and our reputation depends on it as well. So then they would really help us with their expertise in the space to enhance our capacity to, recruit, educate, and support international students for success here at Western. And that partnership would not replace what we are already doing, which is direct recruitment of international students and, of course, domestic students as well. It would just be supplementary and in partnership. And we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So why Navitas? That's the name of the company we are interested in working with. Why do I think are they the right fit for Western? They partner with a wide range of universities, and you can see that they're on the screen. They partner with small universities that are not comparable to us. They also partner with other universities, and they also partner with top-notch universities, and you can see some of them, they by far outrank us actually in terms of the international ranking agencies that we pay attention to. So some of the top of the world universities actually work with them, and they consider this a reputation enhancer, working with a company like that, because we all know that it's our job and our duty to also educate international students. And of course, international ranking agencies have long recognized that that's what great universities do. They educate both domestic and international students and are a welcoming, multicultural, diverse campus. So Western, I've been here almost 3 years, and I would say that Western has been very late to a strategic approach to international recruitment. But we have, over the last few years, since I've been here in particular, really expanded our network and broadened how we work across the world. I was shocked to find out we, for example, have not one single partnership with a university in India. it's like, really, what? And so all of that is happening, but it's not happening at the speed and the scale that we needed to do. And I think working with a provider gives us that boost that gets us where we want to be. We wouldn't even, it would take us decades to be able to tap into the network that they have built. So they are used to, Navitas per se is used to, that's what we like about them. I'm competing with the voice there. They're they are used to working with publicly funded universities, and that's particularly here in Canada. They've had, oh yeah, you're turning me off. Thank you. I'm not sure if that's working, but yeah, they work with, they have a Canadian, Navitas Canada has a all Canadian board. They have people here in our time zone. They have really a broad-based experience, almost 20 years experience here in Canada. Let's move on to the next slide. And you can see who they are working with. Currently, they're working with Simon Fraser. And but then they're also working with the University of Manitoba and some other universities here. And there's also a couple of other third-party providers at work here in Canada, not Navitas, but other ones that have very similar model. But just going to Simon Fraser, that's one of the longest standing partnerships they've had since 2006, so almost 20 years, going very well. And the data we obtained from them show that students aren't just, in one little area. They're really distributed across the university in all programs and disciplines and faculties. And I think that would be something that's really important to us, to think about that international students really can access all the wealth of programs we are offering. And then I would say that roughly at Simon Fraser, half of the international students are coming directly and half of them are coming through that third-party provider. So how would this work at Western? Next slide, please. Navitas has an extensive network and in-depth knowledge about international higher education, and almost in all regions of the world. So they can help us identify students who would be a good fit here for us at Western. They recruit around 66,000 students from 151 countries every year. So it's a huge network. We have 24 agents and we deal with, we moved from 20 to 40 maybe. But recruitment would really occur at an agreed upon band, so to make sure that students can really be successful here when they come to us, and that's for us to decide. And that works different with every partner. Obviously, Western is special in my mind, and the students who come here need to be able to succeed, and we want them to succeed, of course. The first year at the International College will set them up for success, and then they move into year 2 and 3 and 4. And that's the model that has really shown a lot of success. The data we've seen and worked with show that students do really well after that initial year. Currently, I would say many international students who come to Western are already high school students here in Canada, and they have different needs than students who come very new to Canada from abroad. And so maybe I can move on and make sure that I can have time to answer your questions, because I think the important piece is to understand how would students be treated and how would they experience that first year at that international college. And we hear, all of you probably have gone out at one point trying to find an academic counselor trying to help you, and then you've been told you went to the wrong one and you got to go to the other faculty and you have to go to this program and this department. And so that they specialize on this kind of supports that ensure that students actually who are really brand new to Canada get the support they need. So they get 1 hour of instruction more per week. They get extra hours of workshops and tutorials. They probably study in their first year in the international college in slightly smaller class sizes. There is mandatory tutorials and workshops. Something called interdisciplinary learning skills that is built in. That's where you learn everything from how you shop, how you go out, how you consent, how you stay out of jail, what Canada is, I'm saying this jokingly, what Canada is all about, right? The kind of, it's like 101, Canada 101 in 1 year. And then the how the learning functions is that there is an emphasis not so much on English language training. The world speaks much better English than it used to 15 years ago, but there's an emphasis on building infusing the content of first-year courses with kind of some of the technical skills you need to have. I was an international student. It took me so long to understand how you write in a writing discipline, the humanities and social sciences, how you actually write a paper in North America, which is so different than in Europe, where I came from. This is the kind of skills, not about English vocab. It's really about the technical and methodology pieces that people need to learn in order to be successful. And then there's a couple of other things you can see there on the slide. There is orientation, pre-arrival, there is lunch hour programming. There is really a kind of that approach to rather than sending people out to ask for things, things are going to be integrated, tailored, and customized for them. And we, of course, know that from our research that that kind of preparation helps people to be successful, particularly when so many other things are strange and new to them. And so maybe I'll move to the next slide and look at the student experience. There it's really quite interesting that in our early conversation with Navitas that they talked about, it's really up to us as a university to work with them how to shape that. So for example, in some places, the college sits outside of campus. Here it would be within our campus, and students would be part of the the residence system that we have, where they would be intermingling and from day one meeting with other students, making friends. And I think that's an important piece. Have you seen at Western, not Western Road, Richmond Road, on the other side, we've broken ground for the new residence. So we'll have a lot of residence space available, and we may even be able to have people stay multiple years in residence with that new capacity that we are building. Orientation also matters. We would hope that these students take part in our orientation and programming, and that that we as Western provide opportunity to work with the USC and with SOGS, with yourselves, on what's needed financially to ensure that those students can participate possibly in clubs and in programming. And Navitas in our discussions really talked about how this is so important that students get intermingled and get chances to interact with the other students from early on. And in some universities it works well, and in others it doesn't work at all. And they would really encourage us to work collaboratively on that integration. And having been an international student, it's so hard to actually make friends. Is anybody an international student here, or are you all there? Did you find that too? I think it was the hardest for me to actually be fun. I can be funny in other languages, just not in English. It took me a long time to be able, and then people don't get to know you and your personality. It's really hard, right? And that integration piece really matters, I think, early on. And so they really recommend us to have a look at that. Next slide, and then I'll talk a little bit about student fees and impact. So they would pay the same ancillary fee, the same that Western students pay. And then they would have access to libraries, social, recreational, health, and mental health services. I think that's important too, because as they progress from that more intimate college into year 2 and 3 and 4 into the larger classes, having that continuity to see the same providers really, really matters. And maybe up to you guys, if we move forward with a partnership, how to pay into a USC membership or SOGS membership, because there's also professional master students involved that we want to recruit. That is really up for us to discuss, but I think it would be great if they could participate in all those events and become part of the campus community from day one. One of our faculties, who is quite enthusiastic about it, said that they wanted to have them first during the first year over and get to know the counselors and professors, and there was kind of much enthusiasm for that. And I think that integration part is really important. It's for up to us to work. Next slide will show you a draft timeline where we are at. We've given to Senate only a discussion document, and we're moving into now what's called a real proposal, where you can see really all the nuts and bolts. It's not, and that's coming forward in April 25th or 26th or something, to Senate, and that will be the fall proposal, so people can really see how an agreement like that would be structured and what it would look like. And so I would say that we are here to consult and here to hear what you think, what your worries or hopes are, and what your thoughts are on something like that. Yeah, I'm sure I have a lot of things I want to say more, but I'm sure that some of those things will come out in the questions. Just wanted to say that we've been thinking long and hard about a third-party provider. We work with lots of third-party providers. We couldn't build a single building without one, right? So we work, we have people that are adjacent to university business that we work with every single day. So this provides risks and opportunities, and the risks are really about the academic quality and the academic student success metrics. And I think those are the ones that we absolutely have oversight over and could control. And because in the end, we want to ensure that students who come here are really successful and really integrate into our student community. In the end, student experience is our signature piece here at Western, and we certainly don't want to mess with that. Yeah, so next slide just says we want to hear from you. And and Jeff is here with me, and so we can take turn answering questions. Thank you.
Counselor Sripapi.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I'm glad we had a chance to discuss this. I do have a question just about the Navitas partnership. I've heard that in other universities, it's built in a situation where while Western gets to create the cutoffs for what international students must meet to get into a module or a department program, it is not up to Navitas how many students they send into it. As long as those students meet that requirement, we are forced to accept them.
No.
No?
We decide. We say what we are comfortable with and how much we want to build the module. If we say we only want, like, it'll start off slowly, maybe just with 50 students, and then there'll be more. And we say how many we can handle and how many we want. So because in the end, we want to make sure we can integrate people and we have the facilities to share, right? I have a kid who's trying to get into the gym at 5:45 in the morning, and it's always full. So we want to make sure, but initially we are talking about 17 students in the first year, maybe, or maybe 100 max, or something, right? Something like that. So I think we would, and we admit 8,000 students every year new. So we are talking about, a small portion of students. It's not a huge number, and it's up to us to decide how many we feel comfortable with. And to me, it's important that our direct recruitment and that second, the partnership, that both work in tandem with each other. Does that answer your question? So we decide, it's like we put that in the contract because we want to make sure that we are a good mix and that there's a good balance, right, between domestic and international students. Thank you. Yeah.
Just to comment on that, that was mostly regarding intake into the international college. In case this was your question, I want to emphasize there's no bait and switch. If a student gets into the program and is successful in the program, we have places for them. That's why we can't just say, oh, sure, take in 10,000, because we couldn't handle that. That's why we have to control at the front end to make sure students can be successful getting into their programs.
Counselor Sorofian.
Thank you first and foremost for coming here. Very much appreciate it. Wrote this out just so that I could perform it to the best of my abilities. So I understand that the proposed partnership with Navitas is targeted to start potentially in the 26 to 27 year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. With the first cohort then arriving at Western in 27 to 28, and the faculties would probably see the financial benefit of it in 28 to 29. Is this correct so far or no?
Do you want to?
Uh, So there'll be money flowing to people, people who are involved already in the first year. They will have to pay in their first year with the first cohort. They'll have to pay royalties to Western. They'll have to rent space on Western, and that money is earmarked to actually go to the units that are involved in this, not, to Central.
Okay.
Central money will come later with increased revenue when the students are in the programs.
I was talking department specifically.
Yeah,
That's,
but
yeah.
I think you're 1 year out. We hope that the first, that the, sorry, we're hoping that the first cohort would arrive in the fall of 27. And so if we signed soon, in the next few months before the summer break or something, or decided to go with that, they probably do need that year to ramp up and find the students that we want, right? I actually think it's positive that they work with all kinds of different big places, small places, famous places, not famous places. At least we don't step over each other in the recruitment space. It's a good thing. And then they would come in 26.
Okay, so that clears up some things, but just for the main question for me, I recognize that Western's international undergraduate enrollment is currently lower than some of our other institutions in Ontario. My concern is I know Navitas is ultimately a for-profit company, and as a public university, our mission is to educate and train individuals where Navitas may be one to make money instead. So while Navitas may help us scale up quickly, I was wondering if enough consideration was given to expanding our existing private recruitment, such as with like global region or nation-specific offshore agents like IDP or Apply Board, or in-country representation such as Grok Global. That way, we could put out RFPs or even developing direct university-to-university partnerships or branded pathways. My question then becomes, has an analysis been done on how long it would take to see similar returns, both in enrollment and revenue, if we pursued a more direct recruitment approach rather than the Navitas approach?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I wouldn't, yeah, I think we've done a lot of research. It'll take us probably, we're about 15 years behind of this kind of network that people have built, and I would say it takes us another 10 or so to get there. We just don't have that ramp. What we would hire in is specialized help for people to allow us to tap into a network that would take us decades to build. And the ones you're mentioning, we are working with all of them. We are working with all of them. So this gives us the boost that gets us to be less behind and spend and actually get us to where we want to be faster in a very hostile environment currently. As you know, we have our university is here in Ontario. Universities are under a lot of pressure to achieve their goals in an environment that is not entirely university friendly currently. And I think Navitas would probably have to ramp up over 2-3 years. That's why the partnership agreements are a little longer. It takes a number of years. It's an investment for them, and they're pretty good at what they do. They're a company who's pretty good at what we do. People have said to me in some of the consultation sessions, but education is a public good. I totally agree. Education is a public good, but education here in North America has never been for free. Where I come from Europe, education is for free all the way to the PhD. Really, there's no tuition, no nothing. We've never had that model. Everybody, the fact that our operating budget consists of tuition, both domestic and international, and then a little bit of government grant. So that's how we operate as a university, and we hope to give you the best experience that we can with the money you pay, and that goes for both domestic and for international students, and Navitas will not change that at all, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Ratanashi.
Hi, thanks so much for the presentation and for giving some context and information. So my question is, how do we ensure that Navitas is recruiting students from all demographics, incomes, statuses? And from your perspective, are there any disadvantages of partnering with Navitas? Thank you.
So I've been looking into the demographics of where they recruit, and I can say with certainty that it's a broader mix than we are currently recruiting. I've looked at their statistics; they're a lot broader. Not only are they broader, they can tailor it to the university. So Simon Fraser, for instance, one of their partners, has quite a large Chinese population, as do we. Not as large as ours, but they bring in a lot of Chinese students. But so does Vancouver. Manitoba is an entirely different mix. So we can control that to a large degree. The question of all sort of financial ranges, that's a harder one because tuition is expensive. We offer a lot of scholarships for international students. This would enable us to offer more scholarships to international students, potentially, because we'd have more revenue coming in. I shouldn't make that a promise because Florentina is the budget officer, but I can let you jump in now.
Maybe to say that I think you asked, are there disadvantages? There's risks when you work with a private provider, but I think one of the counselors, you just mentioned Apply Board. They're a private for-profit company, so we work with them, right? And we make sure we monitor what they do, and this would not be any different. They just have a much larger. We recruit currently from, I don't know how many countries, but not even half over. Yeah. And they, for them, that diversity is important because, as you know, we don't control geopolitical conflict, right? So it's important for them to be able to work in a lot of countries. And I think that's the diversity we want to see. So last year, we put, was that the last year or the year before when we still had more money? When was that? 2 years ago when I first came. We put a lot of new money into international student scholarships. And so we have a New to Canada, Welcome to Canada, a New to Canada grant. So we put several $1 million into those into scholarships for international students. And I think just as we put money away that's government mandated for domestic students for scholarship and bursaries, part of the tuition, right? 10% we put away for OSAP. That's what the government wants us to do. We would put away money for international students for that, scholarships as well, like a portion of tuition. And I think that's only fair because in the end, we are. I think Western is very proud of the high entry averages we have, and I think that's important to us. But our business is really to identify and nurture talent, I think, and that also means that scholarships need to be available for those who could otherwise not come. Yeah. How much did we put into the 6 million or so over the last few years? We put really a lot of money into those. Thank you.
Councillor Gleed.
Just to echo my peers, thank you for joining us tonight. My question is regarding the quality of education for students coming into through the Navitas Direct Pathways programming, just to ensure that the quality of education is the same that students who are enrolled on main campus do receive. I haven't heard too much information in terms of the qualifications for the educators themselves, the professors. And then there have been a few questions about grades in terms of students meeting requirements to enter Western into second year.
Maybe I'll start and then Jeff chimes in. So we would work in a model. So of all the, some Navitas and providers like that work with different models depending on the wishes of the university. To us, I think it's really important that our instructors, from full-time faculty to limited duty, depending on their wishes, that we actually ensure that those people get hired in the department where the program is handled, that they get vetted and then recommended to be teaching in the college, and that the academic oversight would include that we ensure that the exams are the same and the midterms are the same and the syllabus is the same, that said there is an advantage to learn in a smaller, more intimate class that is infused with those extra non-academic things I've been talking about, but that we really, I don't think otherwise it would work. For Western, some of the models are work in a way that it's entirely outsourced. That wouldn't work for a university like ours. I think that continuity, that our instructors are vetted by our departments and program departments is really essential to ensure that really people get the same thing, the same deal and the same education. Otherwise, it'll also jar when they move into second year. So they would have to fulfill all the requirements that we would ask them to do to be able to, and that protects everyone. It would protect the Navitas, it would protect us, and it would protect the students, because in the end, we want people to come here to be successful, right? And to have actually a good experience. But Jeff, did you want to chime in?
Just a little bit. Not much to add to that because that's all really the main point, but I'll just point out that we have 2 affiliate university colleges who offer a lot of the same courses, same course numbers, et cetera. It would be like that. There would be the same level of oversight and control. There would be people, so my department is physics. If there's a physics course being offered, someone in physics would be looking at the syllabus, would be looking at the assignments, would be ensuring that it was, to all intents and purposes, the same course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And maybe there's more variety in some of the disciplines, but all first year chemistry and first year physics looks very similar. And we just need to make sure that students are successful when they move. Yeah.
Councillor Lubano.
Hello, thanks again for coming today. It's nice to hear that you are also an international student. So I'm curious, I know that there was a previous proposal on Navitas before, at least my time here at Western. So I'm just curious to know what makes this one better than the last one, and what would you say were the weaknesses of the previous one that were worked on to change this?
Yeah, I wasn't here. Jeff was here, but I were you here and involved? Yeah. Did you? I think that the main difference is that the last proposal wanted to outsource that teaching part and the academic work to external people, external to the university. And I really don't think that would work for us. That continuity and that academic oversight is really, really important. I think, high quality student success depends on high quality instructors, and we have them here at Western. And I think in working with our departments and program chairs to ensure that there is that continuity and connectivity is really what's different. Last time around, there was talk about outsourcing all of that, which would have taken all the control away from Western, that academic oversight that we need to have, and that some other universities work that way. It's just not working for us. And I would say for them, their job is to help us to do what works for us, right? That's what they do as a company. And what works for others, that's great. But what I think this is the piece that is really, really important this time around. Otherwise, the risk is just too great. There were questions about the academic quality just now and how we ensure that connectivity. And you asked that question, right? And I think otherwise we don't have that oversight, and that's really important. That would be an essential part of any negotiations. Jeff, did you want to chime in? No.
If I can ask a follow-up.
I'm good with anything. I booked the evening off. So. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If I can ask a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious about the consultation process for international students specifically. As I do think that this would have effects not just on the students incoming, but also on the international students that would not be attending Navitas as well. So I'm just curious to know if there's any plans to do that before the proposal goes forward.
What are the things, tell me what the effects would be.
So, for example, when I first came here as an international student,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, it's fairly difficult to build community, to make friends, come
Yeah.
from a different place. I didn't have an O week personally because I came in late due to visa issues.
I
But I'm
know.
just curious, like thinking about the effects that it might have on the community at Western that currently has sub 10% international student enrollment when they are split up into two separate, I guess, physical spaces as well, which you mentioned that they might be located in a different academic building. I'm just curious if any thought has been put into the impact on the community that international students typically form
Yeah.
for themselves when they're at school.
So I think Navitas expertise that we don't have to this extent will help us to be better with our international student services for all those students who come to us directly. When we talked with the University of Manitoba, who also almost had almost a 20-year relationship with Navitas, they said it helped them to help Navitas to become better. It helped us to become better for the integration piece that I talked about. That is so important. That is something we need to and should be working on. And you're exactly right. Universities originally weren't built around the needs of international students, and working with experts in that area to make sure that our services keep up and integrate well, and where we learn from each other and partner with each other is a really important feature. So we have no plans whatsoever to undo what we have invested in international and through the registrar's office and through some of our other services, but we hope to collaborate with people who know this business well, and also ensure that our services grow alongside in that partnership.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, will you be consulting international students on this?
I guess we could. Yeah. Yeah. We have consulted with Western International so far, but we can also, yeah, I mean, I didn't think I would come here, and now I'm here. So I'm totally happy to also consult with international students and hear their worries and concerns. And I'm sure they are close to what I remember, what I experienced when I first came here. Thank you.
Counselor Lee.
So I noticed on the website that the frequently asked questions, it mentions that it's a 10-year contract. My concern from a USC perspective is that I feel like a lot of the key factors for this to be successful are ones that are very hard to predict in terms of like student experience. So the thing that looks like things like integration and acceptance, I feel like you can put someone in a student residence, but you can't guarantee that's going to work for them. And if we don't provide that, we're not providing the Western experience that our name is kind of attached to.
Mhm.
If that's something that like doesn't necessarily work out within that 10-year contract, what options do we have to back out early or respond to things like that?
That's a really smart question. Any contract we do has exit clauses. And when you work, why is it 10 years? It takes them 2 or 3 years where they need to ramp up, right, to where we want to be. And then there's all kinds of pieces, aspects in a contract. So there's a annual review, there's a midterm review, there is samples of student work, there's all kinds of levers and checks and balances in place that allow you to ensure to identify issues early and to problem solve them. And then there's, of course, in every contract, we have a good legal counsel, Paul Ulichuk. Have you ever met him? He's really good. And so we would certainly want to protect ourselves. 10 years sounds long, but I think it's actually not. And when you think about how long it takes to work a partnership and ramp up, maybe long for you, not long for me. Did I answer your question? What there was a part I didn't answer.
I guess being explicit there, will there be, like for the annual review, will that directly lead to options for us to back out and terminate if we see that it's not successful?
There, yes. Yes, I also imagine that the reports should come to Senate, of course, right, to our Senate, and the reports would be public to ensure that people can scrutinize. So what we've seen we've done a lot of research to talk to other universities who've had that partnership for a long time, and their experience is that the students are really, really well prepared and do well when they actually move over into year 2, 3, and 4. And I think that's important to check those things, what the experience is with other universities. So we've certainly done that. And then, as I said, it's their reputation on the line as much as ours. So there would be an interest, of course, to problem solve together if there were issues. Thank you.
President Kalajian.
Hi. We've spoken lots about this, but just a question that I don't think I've gotten the answer to necessarily is Navitas forever? Like, is that something? No, right? So, okay, we get to the point where this is adopted, 10 years has passed. What then? Do we, reevaluate? Is it something that you see, like, in my opinion, it's something that, Western should be, like, spearheading themselves, right? So I'm just wondering what that looks like from a future context, and how long you see this partnership really going.
So the other universities here, and there's some who just started and some other ones who resigned for another 10 years or another 5 years. So we'll have to see what are the benefits, what are the risks, what are the things that don't work for us down the road. I think that's why we had that really great question about exit clauses and about being able to terminate should it not work for us. I think that's an important piece. Yeah.
Vice President Batista.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I know we've also had some conversations around this already, but I think, so I had a question already, and we see a very high demand for campus resources like libraries, gyms, and resident spaces. And my question is specifically how the proposed partnership might impact existing infrastructure when it plans to bring in a significant number of international students. My concern is specifically around resident spaces, because even with a new residence being currently under construction, will this even be enough to provide sufficient capacity to accommodate these students without cutting back on things like upper year residences, for example? And then secondary to that, how would this kind of impact the student experience for those students? Because if these students are being housed among residences with non-Navitas students, for example, but then they're taking courses that are on a completely separate space on campus, would this kind of feel like, I think I would, if I were doing that, I would feel kind of disconnected if I couldn't relate to these students, right? Like if I'm taking classes in a different space, but I'm still living with non-Navitas students, for example. So those are my 2 questions.
Yeah, and I'll start on this. I mean, first of all, it's important to understand that it wouldn't be bang 800 new students on campus. It would start with probably under 100. It would ramp up over the years. The number of students coming through Navitas would increase, but so will the number of students at Western. We've been growing a lot in the last 10 years already. So it would be against that backdrop of continuous expansion. So yes, some of these services are well utilized, athletics, recreation, etc. But again, as we expand, we would have to increase some of those facilities anyway, and having more ancillary fees coming in, more revenue coming in would just make it easier to do that. So sure, if you have more students, you need more support services, facilities, but we've been doing that for as long as I've been here, adding facilities, adding capacity, and that would just have to continue. As far as the question of integration of the students, the thinking, and of course none of this has really been decided in great detail, but the thinking is yes, we would integrate them through the campus system, just as things like WELC students, English language students, would be integrated through the system. The classes may predominantly be in one area of campus, but they probably wouldn't only be in one area of campus. There'd be certain reasons to have classes on main campus, specialized classes, lab classes would probably happen on main campus, music would probably happen on main campus. So there'd be reasons we'd have to do that, but on top of that, my view would be that we would also deliberately have a few other classes that wouldn't have to be on main campus, have them on main campus, just to make sure that everyone feels like a Western student right from the start.
I also wanted to maybe quickly add, can you hear me? Just wanted to add quickly that actually, I think in 2018, we had 15.9% international students as part of our undergraduate population. Now we have 7. So we have actually gone down, and that partially has to do with COVID, partially has to do with the external environment, just as we are ramping up, all the external environment is changing. We don't control geopolitical conflict. So we're really talking about a small number of additional students for the first number of years. And you've seen the building frenzy here. So we're building a graduate residence and undergraduate residence. We are going to update all kinds of other facilities that comes when more people are using it. So great question. Thank you.
Councillor Bennett.
Hi there. Thank you again both for coming. I just have a question. So will Navitas be offered for like every program and faculty at Western? And if so, how will the application process work for programs that require supplemental materials? Like music, for example, requires an audition that is reviewed by faculty members, and I'm just wondering how that will work.
Right. So
Like a physicist answer.
right. Sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Will Navitas be available for all programs?
So of course, with an initial intake of under 100, you probably can't offer all 1,000 courses that we have on campus. It wouldn't really make sense. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to start with what are the most high demand courses that can lead in the most directions, like things that come to mind off the top of my head. Seems everyone takes Psych 1000 or whatever it is now. Everyone takes Calc 1000, things like that. That gets you into science, that gets you into economics, that gets you into a lot of things. So there'll be a little bit of curating needed to figure out the most impact. And then as more students come in, more courses will get added. Music is an interesting example. The addition process, etc. I guess I'll say right now, don't know. We'll have to work that out. What I do know though is that music is interested in the idea. We've already had a little bit of talking. So one thing about Navitas is they can aim their recruiting priorities where we tell them as well. So if we want a certain group of students, they can try to go out and get that. Why? Because they're recruiting well over 60,000 students every year.
And I think we would, we start small, and then what we've seen of the data from other universities who also started with a smaller cohort and a smaller number of courses. In the end, after a partnership has gone on for a number of years, they're really in all the faculties, and that's what we've seen in some of the other universities. So we kind of fan out. And as we become more known in the international field as Western, then I think it'll be a snowball effect, and that's what happened at all the other universities. Thank you.
Councillor Saha.
Hey, thank you. My question is, what would happen if a Navitas student at the end of their year did not meet the requirements to go into Western?
Yeah, that's did you want to?
Answer them all, or you can.
Yeah. It's a really important question. Sometimes what happens is that students, first of all, they don't have to come to Western into second year. They could also go to the U of T or something and apply elsewhere. So there's certainly that. And then some other students may decide other things. If they cannot make the requirements that are, the pieces that are required for them to move into second year, they have quite often they stay in the college a little longer until they have the requirements that they need, and sometimes they welcome that because they also not sure we have with the 2 international students who are here, but what I experienced when I was a student, which is admittedly a number of decades ago, there's often a huge expectation by the families at home how you need to succeed and how well you need to be doing. And that would also ensure that they really can do that and deliver of that promise that their parents and families are putting on them so they could stay in the college a little longer. Yeah.
Just to ask a follow-up, if it's the case that Navitas students, once they're done their year, could apply to any Canadian university, what's the guarantee that they would choose to stay at Western and therefore like increase our our international student population?
Just so I get some airtime as well. Well, we can't guarantee, of course, because students are free agents and they can choose to go where they want. I can look at statistics at other places, and the statistics are that well over 90% of the students who successfully complete that first year program do go on to the host university. And I say successfully complete on purpose. That means that the ones who don't deliberately went somewhere else. As far as why would they want to, well, presumably they came to Western on purpose in the first place, but also since they'd be taking actual first year Western courses, there's no question of transfer credits. There's no counselor that you have to talk to. Do I have the right credits to get into this program? You do, because you took our courses. So it's a lot easier to stay in Western.
And maybe you made friends and maybe you were integrated well and maybe your experience was good. We would hope for all of those things.
Yeah.
Thanks, that was a great question. They're all great questions.
Councillor Matsukawa.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
welcome.
This is a question on behalf of women. We appreciate that the ad hoc committee was created to plan what this new partnership would look like in terms of student experience for recruited international. But what will happen if Navitas does not agree? Well,
Yeah, the last piece.
yeah, basically in terms of like the education goals that and expectations that we would have for Navitas students, what would happen if Navitas does not agree to meet these conditions?
If they don't agree to our conditions, that's what we're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so the ad hoc committee was actually created to study the proposal to ensure that all the questions, similar to what we are doing here tonight, you know, to ask all the hard questions to make sure we really have covered every loophole and we don't we mitigate the risk that comes with something like that. And well, I mean, then if it's a negotiation, if there are certain things that are must-haves for us that jive with our values at Western, and their interest is in working with us. So
Just to follow up, would stuff like being part of club be non-negotiable?
So being part of the clubs, that is really a negotiation with the USC executive. What can we do? What is the financial pieces that you need to have in order to allow those students to possibly participate? So there's many negotiations going on. One with our obviously departments and programs because they need to have oversight. One with you and with SOGS and many negotiations, not just with Navitas, with how we would want to work that partner. Am I answering your question or not?
Yeah, I just kind of want to hear like what you'd like. How that negotiation would be.
Yeah, I mean, their model, I think, is to be working flexibly with universities, and our contract wouldn't be looking like the one that they have with SFU or with Manitoba, because we have certain requirements that make Western, and we would not be able to change that. And I think their interest is actually aligned with us to make this work for us, and they. When I look across the country and also how they work with universities like Lancaster in England, for example, and also some of the Australian universities, every agreement is a little different because it needs to respond to what's important to the university. And Western is just not like Manitoba, and Western is also not like Lancaster or Sydney. Yeah.
So if I can just briefly say, just regarding, for instance, clubs in USC things, I would like to see full integration, and Navitas says that full integration is the key to the student happiness, success, etc. So for sure, we want that. Navitas wants that. It's a question of whether you want that. And I don't say that in an insulting way. It has to work for you as well. You have to have the capacity. There has to be enough funds flowing for you to even be able to do it. So that makes it our job to talk to the USC to figure out how that can work. Yeah.
Counselor Sharma.
Thank you again for answering our questions today. It is nice to hear that you two were an international student. My question is, so how would Navitas present themselves to make sure that students are aware of where they would be attending? Often students are misguided by recruiting organizations on ground realities at the institution, about the institution they plan to go to.
They would, I'll start and then Jeff can chime in. They would recruit only under the Western banner together with us, not by themselves. They would recruit together with our registrar's office, actually, under the Western banner. And I think a lot of what resulted bringing in the international students caps and the regulations we currently have has to do with many institutions, not us Western, who promise international students something that they can't deliver. That's not good, but that's not us, as you know. We actually do deliver what we say we do, and so we are not one of those institutions. And I think it's very important that it's in their interest to recruit together with us under the Western banner, and that's I think an important must-have and feature as well. That was a great question. All questions have been great. Thank you.
Counselor Malabanan.
Yeah, thank you both for joining us today. I believe in the past you've mentioned that the Academy might be hosted in the Brescia building in their classrooms, but I guess I'm more so curious with different program requirements as we've mentioned tonight, such as those in music. I'm just wondering if there's been any more consideration on where the Academy might be held on campus.
We're thinking, well, first of all, Jeff, you talked about that before, that students would take classes probably all over the place, some classes there and wherever that college is located. Brescia could be an option for us because it's not far. It's part of our campus. It's just across the road, basically right next to Ivy. Makes a lot of sense to do that. But then the expectation is when students take labs, for example, or those one-on-one music lessons, that they're specialized places and spaces that they need to use. And absolutely, they would mingle on campus, but they would also get in the college some of those non-academic pieces that they really need to do to be successful. So in the last conversation we had with Navitas, they kind of said, number one, when you guys vet and tell us who the instructors are, we need people to be enthusiastic about teaching international students and not kind of thinking that's not what they want to do. We need that part. And then we also, the goal is that students after year one can actually enter a large class, say in engineering or some other discipline, and feel comfortable and know how to ask a question and actually be comfortable being in that larger environment. And that's really the goal.
Just a really, really brief follow-up as nuts and bolts things way down in the weeds here, but because they do their teaching a little bit differently, they'll often have an extra hour, they'll have drop-in tutorials, they'll have a lot of other programming. They need space that they can be fairly flexible with, and we can't be all that flexible with a lot of our existing classrooms. And so just as a practicality, they'll need a central hub somewhere and then fan out and use other campus facilities.
Before I call on the counselors with their placards up, has anyone who has not asked a question yet like to ask a question before I call on repeat second time questions? Yes, counselor. Sorry, I can't see your placard, but go ahead.
Hi, thank you again for coming in. My question was kind of related to the programs that are going to be offered here at Western. I was just wondering how they would change, if at all, enrollment-wise. Like, would there be spots allocated to Navitas students, or would the numbers kind of stay the same?
So you're talking about size of existing modules and that sort of thing? I think it's, well, I mean, in the sort of ideal world, the way I've been thinking about it is that programs that were not limited entry, so ones that you just have to qualify to get into, probably if the student wants in, they would just get in. Now, we wouldn't want programs to get unmanageably big. That's why we need to control a little bit student interest at the front end to make sure that a year down the road, it's about right. But you know, as well, all of our programs grow all the time as the university grows. So I think the various programs will get bigger, and we'll have a little bit of a lever to use to control which ones get bigger faster, but they will all grow. I'm not sure if that's really answering your question though.
That kind of answered it. I was more so wondering if the programs would have like specific spots for these students, or would they kind of like, would the pool remain the same? They would just be competing with everyone else.
I think so okay, so if it was a program, so now I'm thinking of maybe Med-Sci where there's limited spots in programs, that's something that would have to be discussed. So I could see a model where you'd have a certain number of spots left aside, or maybe the students compete along with all other students for those spots. But a lot of programs, we don't have to reserve spots. If you want a seat in, you know, honor specialization in physics and you qualify, you're in.
We plan at the outset, you know, as the students apply, they get conditionally admitted with the chosen program in mind that they're going to have. So we can plan that assuming everything goes well, we'll have that in our enrollment plan that in year 2, they'll be there, right? And so they would declare right at the outset, like you do. When you apply, you say, this is what I want to do down the road. And often in many of our disciplines, you only qualify for your sport program after your general year 1, right? So it's some programs, arts and science, for example, have you only chose your major or your major module for year 2, right? And so that wouldn't be any different. And then we can actually plan ahead for those spots. So we wouldn't just reserve a spot. We would know when people apply what they want to do. And then it also helps us to put resources there, to have enough profs, to have all those things in place. You're asking really good questions, and and they're great because they help us to also make sure that when we move forward, that we have all those nuts and bolts that you're asking about figured out. So thank you for all of that. Yeah.
Counselor Chai.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. And I was just wondering, for programs that have to specialize in their second year, how would that work with now?
Can you be a little more specific? Almost all of our programs, you have to qualify in first year to get into in second year.
Oh no, like for example, I know for general science, you decide whether you specialize in biology in your second. I was wondering, like, how would that like go with novice? A different.
Right. So now you're really kind of talking about the transition from Navitas to main campus, and so details for us to certainly work out. I don't actually see it as being a lot different than what we do. I think towards the end of the year in the Navitas first year, students will have an opportunity to do their intent to register, to say what program they'd like to be in, and then it becomes a question of, do they qualify, and is it a program with limited spots available?
Counselor Lee.
This one's kind of a multi-parter, so there's like a few clarifications first. Firstly, I read the FAQ website. It says that prospective students who meet Western's direct admission standards would be referred to Western for direct entry consideration. So to clarify, does this mean that Navitas is only recruiting and enrolling students that are currently below our academic standard?
Not exactly. I mean, first of all, we will have to discuss with Navitas the exact ranges we're recruiting in. But when a student isn't directly admissible to Western, it doesn't just mean their grades aren't good enough. We actually don't want to admit students who will have trouble at Western. In this case, we're more thinking about students who maybe didn't have the opportunity to take prerequisite courses in their home country, things like that, where they could benefit from picking up courses at Navitas, prepare themselves to get into Western.
So I noticed follow up on that, that right now at Western, there's an option for students with certain IELTS bands to take like courses with the WELC before they continue at Western. Is Navitas going to be taking any of those students?
Well, as far as the WELC programming, as far as English language programming, at some universities, Navitas does do English language programming. They are quite happy to hand that over to us. It'll be us doing the English language training. But as far as taking students who maybe have to qualify before first year is what you're talking about, that's something still under discussion. So preliminary year programs aren't especially popular with students, especially ones paying high tuition, because it adds a year to your total education, right? So people would like to get into first year as quickly as possible, and we'll make sure there is a pathway for that. Navitas does have programming at some universities where students can qualify first before going into first year, not necessarily a whole extra year of study, maybe an extra term of study to get ready for their first year courses. These are important questions, but their detail is still to be worked out.
So then I know you
just quarantine.
Just wanted to say that that right now we recruit in a certain band, right? So we say the minimum entry requirements are this, and then for some programs it's like this, and our affiliates, Huron and Kings, have a different band, and so I think it's really important that we don't trip over each other in the space, that we do what we always do, but with that we work with Navitas on where they can recruit and what we consider direct entry. And what happens when you go out and recruit together, and that's what happens at the other universities. They say, oh, he is student so-and-so. They're really interested in coming. They don't need Navitas. They're actually ready to come over. And quite often is what happens is that I always, I don't, having been an international student, don't like when people say, oh, international students are no good or they're not good enough. And quite often what happens is that you don't have the prerequisite in the country that you went to school with. And that's where the non-academic, the prereqs come in, that they would get as part of the college. And that doesn't mean the students aren't talented. It doesn't mean they're smart. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean any of those things. It just means they didn't have one of the prerequisites. So, and what that means is they would never come directly to us. They need that extra piece that's being offered in the college, and then they're ready to move on. So we would not necessarily expect them to take a full first year course load, but some first year courses during their first year in the college that are really important to get into the program, and then get those prerequisites that they need, and then move on with a really meaning. Is that helpful, what I'm saying?
Sorry, then, if they're not taking a full first year course load in the first year and they're also in smaller classes, how will they be prepared for second year then at Western?
So what happens right now is that for all students, actually, I would say our graduation rates and progression rates are great, but not all students graduate within 4 years, right? So students take an extra course, they take an extra half a term, they take an extra, so it will be very, very tailored to every individual student, their conditional offer of admission. And some are ready to take the full course load. Some other ones may need a little bit more English. Some other ones need the math course, and some other ones. So it'll be very individual. And that's where those small classes come in and are going to be helpful. And then, so, I mean, it's not that everybody here doesn't change their direction or doesn't take an additional course or forgets a course. So when I look at how students graduate, they often graduate in 4+ something years plus an extra term and so on. So it's not different for them. It's kind of what's normal anyway, I would say.
The last one, just to give other people chances to ask questions. But so I know, like you mentioned as well, that the preliminary programs aren't popular because they do want to be like full Western University students. How long do you envision Navitas being as a program then for students, and how long is spent in actual first year, and how long is spent preparing to be in first year?
So they, I think there are many students who spend the entire first year in the college and then move over, and some other ones may take an extra term. I think the average is just a little bit over a year, but then many of them move over within the first year. It's individually dependent too. And it's no different again as what we see here all the time, that maybe you fail a course, maybe you have to repeat it, maybe you drop it, and maybe you get out of it after the yeah.
Lots of reasons why students don't graduate.
Yeah. So it's what we see in normal student life as well. Thank you.
Councillor Shupanthi.
So I'm glad you mentioned Simon Fraser University, because I spoke with Stuart Points, a professor at the School of Communication and was also a vice dean at that same school, who stated that a big difficulty with Navitas was that come renewable arrangement of agreements with Navitas, their university was forced to make concessions and take a more restrictive deal than they first started, as they found themselves unable to extract themselves from Navitas due to their reliance on the additional Navitas revenue and the network. It's mainly because their own international recruiting was cut down to nothing in comparison to Navitas after partnering with them. And while the university may plan to keep our own international recruiting channels going, how will the university ensure that international recruitment directly into Western will be equally available? And how will we make sure that we are not strong-armed by Navitas in the same way?
It sounds like a provost question, Jeff is saying. We spoke with a lot of people at Simon Fraser as well, and as always, there's many different viewpoints. There's a reason they resigned with Navitas. Right now, Simon Fraser, half of their students are coming from Navitas, and the other half is coming from their direct recruitment. At Manitoba, which also has an as long agreement as with Navitas as Simon Fraser has, they said and showed us how their domestic recruitment has grown alongside Navitas. So there's ways to do that. Not every university is the same, but they not sure if they wanted to extract themselves. The data we've seen and the people we talk to show that students are very well prepared and do really well once they enter year 2, 3, and 4. So it sounds to me like you're posing the question as if Navitas is strangling the university, but I think I really think it needs to be a partnership, and we've certainly seen models at the University of Manitoba and others who feel that both of their enterprises have been growing alongside each other. So there's different ways to look at it. Thanks for your question.
Can I just speak to that really quickly?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, I just want to rephrase one thing. The main point that I was worried about is the dependence, the codependent relationship, right? And so what steps has the university taken to prevent that from occurring? And, in the future, 10 years down the line, if we realize that, maybe it's not for us, how can we ensure that it is a clean break?
Yeah, I think it's very important that I actually think It's a really great question because I do think in order for us to succeed in the international space, great universities are global universities. So that there goes research collaborations that we hope that students who graduate from us will be lifelong ambassadors with for us who become leaders in higher education and profs and industry leaders and so on. That's why we engage internationally. And I think that and ensuring that we can only succeed in that space, but that's why the title was called the multi-pronged approach, because not one way is good enough these days for us to succeed. We're also looking at transnational education, for example, which means that we're bringing part of our programs to other parts of the world. We are looking at really a multi-pronged approach to internationalization at this university. And it'll be vital for us to make sure that multi-pronged, dual multi-track is really what gives us that success down the road. And I think we'll be looking closely at the Manitoba model, where both of them have grown alongside and in partnership with each other. And that's the model that we would be interested in. And we've been doing some of those things already. I talked about the millions of dollars we put into the international student scholarships and bursaries, and there for our direct entry students, of course. It's a great question. Thank you for that.
Councillor Anon.
Thank you both for joining us today. So regarding Navitas with engineering, so first year, as you know, we take 11 courses throughout the year. So with Navitas, would first year be split into a common first 2 years with taking like the preparatory courses that integrate into Western? Because some of the courses, we do take a first year design course. So the student does have to be on campus to do the group project work. And how would that work for as engineering?
Yeah, so I don't have explicit answers on that because that'll have to be a discussion with engineering specifically because they're the ones who are going to set their entrance requirements. One thing I will say is that one of the main sources for students at Simon Fraser is their Faculty of Applied Science, which is engineering at Simon Fraser. And so it does work in other contexts. Things like that design course may make it more tricky, but are also a pretty key part of the Western engineering program. So I'm not giving you an answer because I don't know the answer, but it is something that if engineering wants those students, we will have to work out. Yeah.
And the Dean of Engineering is quite keen.
That's one of those students.
Thank you.
I hope you forgive us that we don't have all the answers. We are still in early discussions and you're asking great questions because it means those are the nuts and bolts we have to sort out.
Councillor Thompson.
Hi, thank you again for speak with us. I see that there's a very impressive progression rate from first to second year through the Navitas program, but that graduation rates are still pending. This seems like the most relevant factor for us because it's what's going to give us the most funding when they're paying tuition directly to us second, third, fourth, or even fifth years. Do we have any kind of indication of these graduation rates, that they're positive, that people aren't just making it to second year and then dropping out from there?
Yes, so there are a couple partnerships with Navitas in Canada that are too new to have graduation rates. Simon Fraser, Manitoba have very good data on graduation rates, and I have been looking through them. So at Manitoba, the graduation rate for the students who entered via their international college compared to the students who came in direct entry are actually exactly the same. They're also much lower than we want. Manitoba doesn't have our super high graduation rates, but they are exactly the same. Simon Fraser, do I have graduation rates there? I do. Their graduation rate of students who made it into second year, so the students who transferred, is 86%. So our graduation rate, just to give you some context, for students who enter in first year is more like 88%, but that does include the ones who drop off in first year as well. Simon Fraser, if you want to do it fairly, you have to figure out the percentage you get from the college to second year and then the amount who graduate. That number is is, I don't have it off the top of my head. What I remember is it's within a few percent of Simon Fraser's overall graduation rate. So in that sense, we do have evidence that whatever they're doing is working. The students are as successful as anyone else. And again, we are very happy with our graduation rates the way they are. If we wanted just a whole bunch of international students with no quality control, we would just open the doors and say, hey, if you graduated high school, come here. But that would be unfair to the students because they wouldn't graduate. We want to keep our graduation rates where they are.
And I just wanted to add that it's really, really important to us here as leaders of the university that we do not mess with and meddle with what are the success metrics that we agree with the province on every year, which are our graduation rates and our entry requirements. That's what we do something called the strategic mandate agreement, where we negotiate with the province every year what our success metrics are, and these are highly valued ones. So we put a lot of percentages that then translate into a grant that comes to us from the university. No interest in messing with that at all. And I think these are great questions. And that's why Jeff is doing a lot of that data crunching right now to really ensure that we have done our homework and that we really verify how this could be working for us. Great question.
Councillor Lubano.
My question is more so related to some of the comparable universities that you have brought as examples to share, and you mentioned wanting to track some of their statistics. I'm curious if you have looked at maybe some of the larger universities that Western is typically compared to University of Toronto, UBC, McGill, and the likes, and maybe even some of the affiliates that have double-digit international student enrollment to look at what they're doing that Western is not doing before not deferring, but splitting the responsibility of international student enrollment.
So in terms of partnerships with Navitas, of course, okay, so how do I want to start this? I'll start it this way. We right now, and we have a plot that went to Senate, you may have seen it. We right now in what we call the U6, those are the Ontario Research Intensive Universities, we have the lowest international fraction of the undergraduate student population, 7.5%. Some of them are up to 30%. So, so that's part of our motivation is we wish to become more international. As far as what they're doing, one of the things they're doing is what I alluded to before. Only one of them has a graduation rate that rivals ours. All the other U6 are below us. So they are taking a different approach. You know, they're being a little bit harsher on the students, bringing in students who maybe aren't as well prepared. So that is one difference that, you know, we don't want to go down that road. As far as other universities across Canada, I'm not really sure how to answer that question. Like we know more or less what they do. A lot of them have made internationalization a priority much earlier than we did, so they have those deeper ties that let them get these students. That's what we're growing towards. But we want to do it maintaining our quality the way it is.
Just as a quick follow-up question to that, we mentioned, one of my fellow councils mentioned that there's pending data on the graduation date. So in terms of timing, why is it appropriate to move forward with it now rather than maybe getting additional?
I'm not sure what pending meant in that sense. There's very good data on graduation rates for any Navitas partner that's been in place for at least 7 years. For ones that have been in place for 3 years, there's no graduation data. But we can't wait another 4 years. Typically, all universities measure the graduation rate at 7 years. And the reason is that students do change majors. It costs an extra year. Maybe they get into a bit of academic trouble, have to pull themselves up. Maybe they do an internship. Maybe they decide they have to work for a year. We measure at the 7-year mark on purpose, and that's our most reliable measure.
As a final question, you mentioned that the recruitment efforts would be done in collaboration with Navitas going into those countries and promoting themselves under the Western banner. Given that they have an incentive, my understanding is that they're owned by private equity, they're looking to maximize, the amount of money that they make naturally as a business. So what incentive do they have to direct students to Western, taking revenue out of their own pockets if they deem them to meet the requirements? Like, how do we guarantee that those students that would meet the requirements actually get referred to Western?
That'll be in the contract. That'll be one of the rules. We've had a couple conversations with a few of the people involved, and one of them said very explicitly that when she gets a student who meets the requirements of the university, she turns them over. She has no choice. It's part of the contract.
The clock there still says 7:20 over there.
I'm so excited that it was still early, but it's not.
Counselor Paresis.
Assuming Navitas keeps bringing more and more international students and keeps growing, how does Western plan on scaling the upper years with an influx of students continuously coming in after first year?
So first of all, again, we've been growing for years. Like, would have been if I was proactive, I would have been brought a plot of our growth. It's been a straight line for a long time, and so there's always growth. It's just a question of where the growth is coming from. Right now, our sort of Senate-approved growth plans are to be reasonably flat in domestic intake, growing slightly, and growing our international back up to about 800. Independent of Navitas. Our goal would be to have Navitas contribute about an equal amount, so another 800. And of course, most of those 800 go into second year, third year, fourth year, so that ends up being another 3,000 students or something like that. But honestly, compared to 10 years ago, 3,000 students is nothing, and it's going to take 6 years to get up to that point anyway. So growth just goes on.
We've just added in the last few 5,000 extra students, right? So we would, and we are thinking, I think the balanced mix is really important. We don't want to be like the University of Toronto that has 35% international students at the undergraduate level. It's huge. We want to have the right balance. Like, you have the right balance of undergraduate and graduate students, that's important, and international and domestic students. It makes for a vibrant campus. So we have no intention of really grow. I think if we get back to where we were at one point, even 15%, I think we'd be good. I also think it's important to say that Navitas as a partner works with us where we are comfortable with, and they would not force us to take more students. So the control issue to see what the mix is that works well for a university like Western really matters.
Counselor Sorofian.
Once again, thank you very much, because I really see the need that for Western to grow and at least get on par with other universities, as it'll better Western's rankings and as such better my degree. So, but with that, obviously the finer details. I've been reviewing the TMU's faculty associations briefings on their Navitas partnership, which they had said raised concerns, including potential violations of agreements, precarious hirings being weird. But one of the most significant things that was signaled out in that briefing was that their Navitas courses were taught through instructors hired by their Chang School, which is TMU's continuing education section. That's not a problem. And Navitas also had a say in the hiring for the instructors. So I've also tried to look at other universities and seen if these models were consistent, because I know from the presentation we're told that it would be Western hiring our LDs, our instructors. So my question is, has Western identified a university currently operating under this more integrated model we're hoping towards? And if you could speak more on that, that would be wonderful.
Do you want, or should I? We have the same answer. That's true. Yes, I would say Navitas actually said to us that with every more recent agreement they've done, they've all changed. And so I think TMU does the first year college through their continuing education, which is not an academic unit, right? So that's not what we want. We want to do. So they have, they hire non-academic staff to do the work. And I think I said before, I think I said something like, high quality student success comes with high quality instructors. I really believe that. And so University of Lethbridge and then Wilfrid Laurier University just around the corner, they all did it. Those are the two most recent agreements, and they did it the way we want to do that. So so there's some model. They're not on par with us, and they have much lower entrance standards, but that was important to them. And now to us, that is important too, plus some other things that are also important to us. And I think we can walk away, if the negotiations, I used to be the chief negotiator in my previous role. You also just, they have an interest in working with us. We're a well-known university. They have an interest in fostering that I mean, their success is our success. They're not, if we are harmed, then they are harmed as well, right? Their business model is, their reputation is no good. If you read all the, there's a lot of things that that are said. If you go to other Wikipedia sites, if you can read those on any company actually. But one of the things that always stand out for me is that what's highlighted positively that it gives a chance to students from equity deserving group to have an international education if they want one, and to actually help them find us. Yeah, thank you. So many questions. Awesome.
Counselor Johnson-Steeves.
No, definitely. There, you had the agenda items. Yeah.
Hi, thanks again for coming. I was wondering if there is a concrete plan to accommodate for admissions into honors programs and how they will be structured to accommodate the Navitas students while also remaining equitable to non-Navitas students, especially considering, at least within our science faculty, capstone and thesis opportunities are already in the works of being cut down due to concerns of funding.
Okay, I was all ready to start talking, and then you finished your sentence. So that's a really good point, and I will say one of the reasons we do consultation, so we can get all of these really good points. So in most science programs, and I can speak pretty confidently about science, that's where I'm from. For a lot of science programs, there is simply no limit on number of honors thesis programs. My department of physics, we're one of the smaller departments in terms of students, but one of the bigger in terms of faculty. So some departments will have no trouble at all. But if you take a department like, for instance, biology, not every student in an honors program in biology is getting a individual personally supervised thesis project. That's been the case for years. And I can see your point that more students doesn't help that case. So a couple answers. One is, again, the recruitment won't be random. We will work with the departments to learn what their capacity is, and then we will work with the recruiters in Navitas and our own recruiters to try to get more students who will actually fit into available seats. So we can control that a little bit at the front end. At the back end, taking the long game, as we grow as a university, we will need more faculty. If there's demand in a certain department, then that's where we will need more faculty. But that's not a one-year thing. When you recruit a student, you're really trying to recruit a graduate. You want every student to graduate. When you recruit a faculty member, they are there for 30 years. And so you have to have a strategic view to all of this. So concrete plan to make sure everyone gets a thesis project, I can't go that far. But as far as thinking about strategies, good question. And the short-term answer is we work with the departments to prioritize the type of students where we can fit them in the classroom.
And our strategic plans all say we want to grow in students and in faculty and in staff. And so all that will go alongside with each other. More students mean more faculty, and it means more staff. It can't be done any other way. So it's actually quite funny. I just looked at my my phone, and there's our president kind of going, "Hey, I'm back on campus. I can see your car in the parking lot. Are you okay?" Kind of go. I just texted him back to say that I'm still here. It's kind of funny that he's wondering if my car broke down or I got lost on campus. So there we are. Thanks for having us.
Counselor Gleed.
My question is going to start sounding really nitpicky and then it broadens out, I promise. So I'm interested, just to preface, I'm interested in how the classes would be structured. So looking more on the internal basis. For main campus, we have courses on a regular day, regular set hours. For Ivy, it's on a more dynamic basis as well. And then you also have like the typical high school style where you have day 1, day 2, day 3 system, however that would work. So I'm wondering how Navitas would be proposing or how Western would be proposing that we schedule these classes, ones that they correspond with existing courses. I'm also wondering about breadth requirements for current Western students and if that would also be applied to students coming in through Navitas. And third, and this is where it gets more broad, as I promised, from an arts and humanities perspective, as one of the smaller faculties on campus, would there be any focus or assistance in terms of directing students through pathways into some of our programs, considering we are smaller, and increasing those class sizes in terms of students entering in second year?
Sure. Okay, so in terms of the structure of their timetable of the class structures, you say, I think it'll have to be a little bit hybrid. What I do know is that they tend to teach in blocks, so a little bit more like a high school system where they have things planned out to involve a bit of extra instruction time, broken up with class activities and tutorials, things to make it more than just someone like me talking to you for 3 hours. And so it isn't quite the same way we schedule our classes. On the other hand, probably by necessity, there will be a little bit going on main campus as well, and that has to fit with our timetable. So that's why it'll probably be a little bit of a hybrid. But we could get timetables from other places to look at that. Your last question was arts and humanities. What was your middle question?
In terms of breadth requirement.
Breadth requirements. So for sure, by the time students graduate, they have to meet the breadth requirement. That's a graduation requirement. It's a Senate requirement. There's no way around it other than changing it, which we're not interested in. But there's another breadth requirement for first year, which is that a first year program has to have at least one course. Well, it has to have at least 1.0 course from a different faculty. I'm getting the wording wrong, but I think you know what I mean. If you're in science, you have to take 1.0 from arts and humanities or social science, vice versa. That I think would have to be the same because technically that is the first year requirement, which is a requirement to get into any module. Even if it didn't have to be the same, I would want it to be the same because I think it's actually good for the students to explore other things, to make sure that they're fairly broad by the time they get into second year. So that would be my assumption. As far as boosting programs that are maybe in faculties that are maybe a little lower enrollment, again, we can try to work on that at the front end by targeted recruiting. One tiny little anecdotal data point is that I wasn't involved in this, but when this was first explored 5 years ago, people were talking to departments like philosophy at Navitas partnerships elsewhere, and the chair of philosophy said it was great because they were getting way more philosophy students through that pathway than they were getting through other pathways. So it can work.
Just a quick follow-up then. One, I'm a philosophy major, so that's good to hear. But two, is there any additional data in terms of what students are most interested in when they're being recruited by Navitas as to what faculties they would choose to fall into?
I definitely have faculty data. At Simon Fraser, probably the largest group that takes them is their Faculty of Arts and Social Science, FASS or something like that. But all of the other faculties are a little lower, but about the same. And so they're fairly evenly distributed in every faculty except education at Simon Fraser, and education has no international students at all at Simon Fraser. Like every now and then they have one. So it's been fairly broadly distributed. It's the same at Manitoba. I have good data from them as well, from their Senate reports. By the way, some of my data I get from the university, some I get by sort of searching through their Senate reports, and their Senate reports show the same thing about fairly even distribution across faculty. I don't have that data at the program, at the specific program level, like philosophy versus French or whatever. But I think, students will take what they want to take, so we're not going to try to force something that doesn't work for them either.
Sorry. President Kalajian.
I know this is a really important conversation, just point of personal privilege. I think I just want to put a motion forward just to end the question period once the last person on the list is able to give their question. Would love, to get your feedback on that. I do think it's been about 2 hours. I want to remind everyone that I am on the ad hoc committee. So any concerns you'd like brought forward, I am more than happy to do that. I think we've had a really robust conversation. I'm not trying to silence anybody, but I do think it has been quite some time. So again, we'll maybe answer those 4 questions. And then I'd like to motion for so once that's done, we will end the question period.
We can also come back.
Thank you, President Kalajian. So as a point of information, the people I currently have on the speakers list are Councillor Malabanan, Councillor Shifati, Councillor Lee, and Councillor Lubano. Okay, so if the 4 of you, we'll start with Councillor Malabanan.
Thank you. I'll keep this short. Really appreciate you guys giving more context on Navitas today. Maybe just a bit of a concern. I've heard from a lot of constituents about Navitas and its for-profit structure. Just maybe I'm curious what you might say to people who are really ideologically opposed to privatized education.
Yeah, I'm a supporter of education as a public good as well. I wouldn't propose it if I didn't think there was something in it for us and that we could mitigate the risks. And as I said, people often think some of the arguments I heard is that education is a public good and should be for free. It's just we don't have that anyway in North America, right? People, the fact that you are here probably has to do with your parents' pocketbook to a certain extent, anyways. And I think. So there is we are not, what I'm trying to say is there's it's not like it's purity and impurity by deciding that we are already in a mixed model here in North America, I would say, and there's no denial that is so. They provide expertise, however, just like Apply Board does, or some of the other agencies we are using, which are private and for profit, and we couldn't build a building without contractors and architects, and they're also private for-profit companies. So we are entirely enmeshed as a university and working with people who have expertise that we don't have to that extent, and that we go into contracts with that help us to reach our goals. This is not different, or it is different and it's not different. And I think a lot of what we talked about tonight was really about how we can ensure that we can meet our goals and we can control what are the risks in such a relationship. Thank you.
Councillor Shifati.
Hi, I have a quick question with a slightly longer follow-up, so I'll ask the quick question first. You mentioned faculty, Western faculty would be teaching at Navitas. Could you just expand on whether it be like tenure track faculty, limited duties faculty, long-term, like expand on that part?
So first of all, by faculty, we mean they would be under the UWAFA collective agreement, the agreement with the university, and that includes LDs, LTs, tenured faculty, tenure track faculty, and tenured faculty. Most likely, the majority would be limited duties. That just because departments, if you're a professor in a department, you're probably wanting to teach senior courses in your department to the extent possible. That doesn't mean exclusively, though, if I can still speak. We could imagine a system where people would spend some of their time teaching the college, but then you have to figure out exactly where the money's coming from, right? If you're teaching students at an institution that's collecting tuition and not giving it back to you, then that's kind of lost money. Now, they will be giving some back. These are contractual things to work out.
And most of our limited duties faculty say they don't have enough work, so
Yeah.
it provides more work and more opportunity.
Right. As a practicality, it wouldn't be people parachuted in that no one's ever heard of before. It would be probably, it would be extremely likely, I would say, that someone's teaching Calc 1000 at the college as well as on main campus or one of the affiliates.
Right. So to follow up on that, I've read some articles discussing how students are generally unaware that they're studying with Navitas, as Navitas recruits mainly using Western University's name. How do you foresee this impacting the reputation of Western University? And additionally, do you think it would be irresponsible to let Navitas advertise as Western University education when their first year is starkly different in terms of teaching staff, mainly because, for MedSci specifically, we were taught mainly by, tenure track professors that do research on the side, and that's a different quality of education. From what I'm trying to say is that domestic and non-Navitas international students experience different qualities. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I'll go first then. Yeah. So first of all, I think you'd be surprised how many of your instructors in first year are probably not tenure track faculty. It really just depends on which section you were in. There's a lot of non-tenure track faculty being used in first year. So as far as so in terms of quality, we'll be sure, because it'll be joint hiring committees, we'll be sure that people being hired are ones who are going to do a good job. As far as the sort of fooling the students into thinking they're getting something they're not, it'll be very clear in their offer letter exactly where they are and exactly what the requirements for progression are. There's no intent to trick anyone. We'll definitely make sure that it's honest.
I think we'd also be surprised how many good instructors we have who are not tenure track or full time. A university has a lot of great instructors, including in programs like engineering, and I'm not sure about medical science, but they are really equally distributed across the university. Many of them become also more permanent faculty after some years. So some of the experiences from other universities is that because there is more work, some of those instructors have become more permanent teachers at the college as well. And we also have seen in some of the recent agreements that Navitas has done that tenure track faculty actually may want to teach in the college. We have a lot of faculty who, teaching scholars, for example, who are people who work on the scholarship of teaching and learning, and they may specialize in international education and want to actually work in an international classroom to work on their scholarship, the scholarship of teaching and learning as part of what they do. So all of that is possible, and it also depends on the appetite of our faculty, where they want to go and what. I work with a great number of deans. All the deans report to me, and they probably all have different ideas what will work for their programs and faculties. And we hire them because they have expertise, and we listen to their expertise of what's needed.
Councillor Lee.
I think looking at some other Ontario institutions and their reputations, it's very clear that academic standards is very important because they are ultimately what backs our degrees and their value. I know you mentioned that we retain some of that power in the Senate, or we retain the power fully in the Senate, but speaking tangibly, when Navitas students take the courses that give them the first year credit, will they be given the same evaluations, or at least the same format of evaluations as main campus students? Will these classes be given a curve to reach a certain average to necessarily allow some students to pass, or is it going to be an absolute benchmark to our main campus classes?
We'll do the same for main campus as we would do for the college to make sure it's the same. So in some of our, not everybody curves, right? And so it depends. No, it really depends what program you're in, but we would do the same for both, and they would have the same common final exam and the same midterm. And I think that's important. We want to make sure people are successful when they come into year two. And that's a way to achieve that. And that's also to achieve much that sameness it's easier to achieve that if the instructors actually teach on main campus as much as in the college. And that's why we want academic staff to be in there, so we can actually achieve the same approach and the same outcome. I think that's really an important piece. Thank you.
You want to jump in? I'll just jump in with one sentence there, which is that there is Senate policy regulating the uniformity of classes with the same number. The plan is, said one sentence, so we'll say there's a semicolon there. The plan is that the plan is that the courses will have the same numbers, and we have no desire to change the Senate policy.
Councillor Lubano.
This is a quick question. There was mention of equity deserving groups getting access to education. So I'm just curious, will students attending Navitas be eligible for Western scholarships or financial aid?
So I think that's a negotiation point. We set aside a certain amount of our tuition for scholarships. We'll continue to do so. I don't know what the arrangement is off the top of my head for scholarships elsewhere, but I can definitely see that being something that we would want to enforce as well, either coming from their funding or from our funding. But really, I can't make a promise there. That's not something we've explored in detail yet. But as a general rule, you always do set aside a certain amount of money for scholarships and bursaries.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will address the motion brought forward by President Kalajian to end the question period at this time, and Councillor Serofian was the seconder. Are there any questions regarding that motion to end the question period? Are there any objections to be made at this time? Okay, by show of placard, all of those in favor of the motion to end the question period, please raise your placard. Okay, you can put your placards down. All of those against the motion, please raise your placard now. Okay, and all of those that wish to abstain from the motion, please raise your placard now. The motion passes unanimously, so the question period is now over. Thank you again to both of you for coming. We really appreciate it. And at this time, I motion to recess for 10 minutes. This meeting will This meeting is now back in session. We will now move to hear the executive reports, starting with President Kalajian.
Hey guys, everyone stretch, really just relax. We're gonna be here for probably another hour and a half. Just kidding. We'll be really fast. Just as a heads up, I'm also gonna give Sarah's report because she's not feeling too good. So I'm just gonna do that for her and run through it. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone who went through that question period. I know it's a long time, but it really is important dialogue to have. So I appreciate the research. There's a couple questions from some counselors that I was thoroughly impressed about. Like reaching out to SFU is so important. So I can just say from my perspective, I'm really, really proud of that. So they're leaving here knowing that students are engaged in this topic and that, certain demographics definitely needs to have some more consultation. So thank you. I think that's what council is all about. As for my Ask Me About, I wore a sari for the first time. It was so fun. And Shreya, she did all like the ruching, whatever. And then I got to the ball and it actually came apart. But Solidarity was there. I saw the old Wixta president. She was like, I'm going to help you out. And so I just got like kind of stripped down and people were putting the sari back on. And I'm like, wow, this is like a full experience that I'm so happy to have. So it was amazing. It was so cool. The ball was amazing. My next highlight is powwow. So the ISA held their annual powwow, which was the coolest thing ever. It was really cool to be a part of. And then next, Daniel and I got to go to Motion Ball's Marathon of Sports, where we got to work with different Special Olympics athletes, which was honestly just a very wholesome and fun day. I don't remember the last time I woke up feeling like that sore. I think I felt like I was like in like intense like gym class. Like it was like crazy and it was so cool. But we had a really fun time and they actually raised $32,000 and that's a USC ratified club. So really amazing and good for them. Next we had our EDI Inspire conference, which I think Shreya's touching on. So I'm not gonna take her sunshine because she did so much amazing work. We collaborated with Western EDI as well as our EDI committee at the USC and did some amazing things for our full-time staff. Next for updates is a divestment motion. So I've been in contact with the authors, particularly Jenna, especially as she transitions into her role as UA. We're kind of thinking about how this is going to be kind of coming about. So we're going to be releasing the article in tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow or Friday, which is kind of a intro to what this motion is all about and why it's important. I've actually also reached out to Western Admin, and so we've been collaborating, trying to figure out how they can also, be a partner in this. 'Cause I think it's really important that, we're working together because that's how advocacy ultimately works. And so you'll probably see some boosts next week is what our goal is, with the survey coming out as well. So if you are interested, please respond to Jenna's message to help man the booth. We just need our counselors to really, work on that together just because I think you're probably the most informed student body when it comes to, decisions like this and information like this. And so if you are able, please make sure you respond to her about that so we can figure out the times that work best, and we'll go from there. Next is the Navitas Ad Hoc Working Group. So actually, this was another credit to Jenna. I'm just like name dropping her left and right. I'm just so obsessed with her today. She was in, was it Operations Agenda? Yeah, and so they were trying to create a list of, people who should be involved in the committee. And she said that there should be USC representation. So really, really grateful to have someone like that in our corner. And yeah, so now that was made possible. So that meets every Friday for the next little bit, and then it goes to the end of May. So when I'm done, Kat will be in, and kind of taking my place there. And then I am working on the code still, so the code of conduct. It's in the final review stages. I think our next meeting is actually the final meeting. So it should be coming out next to the Board of Governors. It's not a Senate policy, it's a board policy. And then after that, went to the Western Alumni Board meeting, super cool. Went to Toronto, got to meet really amazing alumni who are doing really cool things. We talked about the different chapters. The one I wanted to mention here is actually the Brescia chapter that they have. So they actually have a alumni chapter for Brescia students and doing a lot of great work there. So it's nice to see that their legacy, lives on with Western alumni. I think that's super important. And upcoming is the President's Challenge that Daniel and I will be going to the 31st. Yeah, 31st. No, it's April. Yeah. Okay, we're arguing over nothing. Okay. So we're gonna head over there, watch some students partake in some case challenges. Be super cool. In Toronto, so that'll be nice. And then we are having our affiliate and SOGS all transition meeting once the USC team is fully hired. Which that leads to my last point, which is next week the new us will be fully formed, which is really awesome. I'm so excited. I feel like I'm like outdated now. So it's good to have good people, new blood, fresh ideas, and so far, pretty amazing. So yeah, if you could just skip to Sarah's report really quickly, I'll go through it very fast. Yeah, so highlights are grad ball promo pop-ups. Did anyone ride the bull? Okay, other than him, like, okay, next. We went to the Spur Fashion Show, and then SSO was also really cool. Me and Sarah were saying that it was actually like kind of depressing because it was like, okay, now we're fully out of here. Like, this is not our thing anymore because it's the new softs, new head softs, new teams coming in. But the energy was just as amazing, and it was so cool to introduce Kat to them as well. Okay, SSO, LST training, that's done. Grab ball, promo pop-ups, they're still going on. We had a fashion show in the Spoke. Did anyone see that? Okay, other than Daniel, like, okay. So that was really cool. FLS worked on that. They had really pretty dresses and just basically walked through the Spoke, social anxiety, who. And then we had the film festival yesterday. And then lastly, we have Purple Finale happening tomorrow. So actually, Andrew and Joe from La Luxury came to the offices today. We got to meet them. It was super cool. They went shopping at the Purple store. And tomorrow, there might be something during the day if you want to see, but I can't say specifically, but it'll be really fun. So yeah, they have their concert. If you want tickets, reach out. Please come. It's gonna be so fun. Next is grad ball on Saturday. Who has tickets to grad ball? Everyone should be raising their hand. Okay, come to grad ball, please. Like the tickets are what, $30? We gave you discounted tickets, right? Okay, so everyone, Jenna, are you coming? I just spent this whole talk gassing you up, please. Okay. You can tell I'm outie. Okay, well, grad ball is Saturday, so you should all be coming. Next is transition. We're all kind of in the midst of that. Everyone on my team has made it like a curriculum, and so we're really excited to pass that on. And then lastly, yeah, Sarah's just always a week planning. It's just like her day-to-day activities, and that's it from your designate VPOP. I'll leave now. Okay. Oh, any questions? Oh, I'm just thorough like that. Okay. Goodbye.
We'll now hear from Vice President Batista.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try and keep this so short because I know we have a long meeting today. So, for my highlights, it's end of year, so there's a lot of events happening. I love that we're having a lot of different galas for different faculties. We have the grad ball as well that the USC is hosting. So you guys should come to that, as Emily mentioned earlier. But yeah, that will be very fun, and I'm just excited to dress up for that. We recently went to the ISA's powwow, which happened here on campus in the Mustang Lounge, and that was very exciting as well. And then also the Spur Fashion Show was very fun to watch. There were like not only was it a fashion show, but there were so many like performances as well. So like dancing and things like that. So that was incredible to watch. So for my updates, we have our last two papers this semester. So the GBSV prevention and response paper is coming to this meeting for approval, and then the sustainability paper is still a work in progress, but will be coming to the April council meeting. We have at the last meeting that was before the Menstrual Equity Day event and the harm reduction campaign had happened. So now that that's done, I can give you a little bit of an update on that. Both events were very successful. We had over 200 students participate in the Menstrual Equity Day Cahoots alone in one day. So that was a great interactive way to teach students about the advocacy project of Free the Dot and kind of explain to students where we're at with that. And then, yeah, there was also a lot of interaction with the booths at the Party Wise harm reduction campaign. We had over 200 students fill out the USC and Active Minds survey on alcohol and substance use on campus. So this will be useful to help inform kind of our future advocacy, especially because the current mental health strategic plan is underway and will be implemented in the next few years. And yeah, other than that, the next thing on my list is regarding first generation students resources. So this is something that my coordinator had been working on. So we met with careers and experience to kind of go over resources for first generation students. So those are students who don't have family members who have or close immediate family members who have gone to post-secondary education. And so we wanted to kind of talk to careers and experience about providing resources for these students who are kind of seeing university for the first time and don't necessarily have someone who can mentor them through that. Currently, the resources available when you search it up, it's typically like financial resources, but there aren't specifically like learning resources that can be found under careers and experience. And that's something that we had been working with them on. So they're going to be implementing that. And they have a research team dedicated to actually doing that. So they're revamping the careers and experience website now to actually include like a part on first generation students, which is super exciting. So my academic coordinator and I are going to be sitting down with them to review this before it's made official on the website. And the next thing is regarding the microwaves. So last month, I know I gave a little bit of an update. The order for the microwaves has been sent. They have been purchased. It's just putting them up has been an issue. It's kind of, I've passed it on to staff to do, but they've told me that there are some issues with facilities management of getting the permission to like drill things into the walls and stuff. And so what I've been told is that it will be up by early April. Of course, that is, I will be following up continuously to see if to make sure that happens. But I just wanted to give you an update on that for now. They have been purchased. It's just now a matter of putting them up. So that's exciting. And then finally, for GBSV response and prevention training. So this is something I'm very happy about. I've worked with wellness equity and education, as well as we've had conversations, me and Daniel, with them to implement GBSV response and prevention training into our clubs training, which is kind of new to the clubs training. And I think it does require ongoing like communication with the wellness equity and education team, of course, and future execs. But I'm excited to see it be implemented now through the USC for club executives. So that'll be happening for the next club training in next September or this following September. Some upcoming things, transition, of course, so continuing to work on transition, like final report and curriculum and stuff. So that'll be fun. And I'm excited to meet the new team very soon. And also with Accessible Education, I'm working with them to put together some videos on social media to promote the accessible education services on Western. So that'll be coming out. We're working on that right now, putting scripts together and filming and such. Not sure when they're going to be posted, but I think near exam season on the Student Experience website. And then, yeah, those are all of my updates. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
We will now hear from Vice President Watches Johnson.
You're awesome. Hi everyone, I'll keep it super quick. My ask me about is how much I'm gonna miss Shreya, but I will let her tell you why. Will you be sharing with the crowd? Okay, awesome. Top 3 highlights. I ran Breaking Barriers, which was a 2-day conference aimed at getting young women into politics. Shout out to those of you who were there. I had a great time. I hope you did too. I hope it was very valuable. But it was an initiative that was very special to me to run something along those lines. So I had a great time. USC General Assembly was great. Again, thank you to those of you who were there. Both of these had lots of counselor involvement, which I loved. And then also the Spur fashion show, I was super involved with Spur in my undergrad. And so it was really, I used to always be backstage watching the show and like doing the cues. So it was really, really full circle for me to be able to watch it from the audience. And I had a lovely time and it was so fantastic. My updates, Mari already touched on the GBSV paper, but it is literally the motion after this. So we will talk about it more then. Breaking barriers, I just explained, it happened. I think it went well. USA General Assembly is done. USA passed their strategic plan, which I have spent literally my entire term working on, as well as 2 policy papers, one of which I also have spent the last 4 months working on. So it was a lot of very validating moments for me. And I think we got lots of good feedback throughout the weekend from the delegates on the policy papers and passed some pretty strong things. On the USA end, I had a campus visit at Laurier's Brantford campus. That was crazy because their campus is literally built in an old shopping mall in the middle of Brantford, which is a very, very small city. Yeah, weirdest campus I've been to so far, but really fun time. They put me on a panel, had a blast. Also, thank you so much to those of you who asked your president to submit their teaching award nominations. We chose the nomination from the HUCSC, so thank you for that. And shout out to Kate Graham, which means she gets to come to a fancy dinner 2 weeks from now, and we're excited to have her. She also was one of my profs when I was an undergrad, and I love her dearly. I think she does amazing work. And then last but not least, Oh yeah, so I reached out to all of your faculty presidents, and I think I just mentioned it briefly at last council meeting, but I asked all of your presidents to submit one teacher or professor that they think is worthy of like the USA Excellence in Teaching Award. And then I had my coordinators go through the applications and pick, they picked a top 3 and ranked the top 3 to me. The second choice had actually already won the award. Kate Graham was also the one who they gave first choice to. And I skimmed the applications briefly, looked like a good selection to me. So yeah, we're giving it to her, which is very exciting. Sorry, does that explain it? Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to talk fast because I know we all are feeling ways. But yes, get out the vote is number 1 is done. Hopefully all of you cast your ballot, please. Although I know it was on the same day as the correspondence dinner, but yes, I really hope you all voted. And if you didn't, don't worry because we have a federal election happening. So I'm now running another Get Out the Vote campaign, which is crazy, where I will have a lot more updates, I think, going forward about what it's looking like for vote on campus. But I also don't know if we're going to do that much because the election's on April 28th. Can I actually get a quick vibe check of the room? Who thinks they'll be voting in London? It's on April 28th. You have to be in London on April 28th. Okay, way more than I thought, so thank you. That like really helps. That really helps me, actually. Thank you so much. Good to know. Yes.
Are we doing the on-campus voting 13th to 16th of April, or is that?
I'm working on it. I have a meeting this week with Elections Canada, so we're finding out, and then we're also, I know there will be polling stations at quite a few different locations on campus. I don't know if they will apply to advanced polling, and I don't know yet if you will be able to vote in them if you don't technically live on campus. So like if you live downtown or in Old North, I don't know if that will apply to you or not. But I'm hoping to get all of that information by the end of the week. And then we're gonna put a lot more content on our socials this time, just so we have a little bit more time to get the information out there, and the information is coming to us a lot earlier, and we have a lot more room on our Instagram. We don't have 1,000 events going on like we did in February. So yeah, please keep an eye out for that. Again, please vote and let me know if you have any questions. Other things that are upcoming, we're going to bring our sustainability position paper to the April council meeting. All of you, or the UA and EA standing committees, have already gotten a chance to look at it. We're actioning that feedback and we'll bring it again to our next standing committee. USA is working on finishing up some operating policies with my working group. We have our big like gala dinner that we will do at the end of the year. It's in Toronto in April. I'm very excited. Yes. And then I'm working on finishing up some of the body text from that policy paper that we passed at General Assembly. And also transition. Last meeting, you guys gave me a successor. So thank you for that. I'm very excited. We love him dearly. And yeah, I'm working on finalizing that report for him, scheduling all those meetings in, and just making sure he knows, just trying to put my brain in his head, basically, for the next month. So any other questions? Awesome.
We will now hear from Vice President Clapper.
Hey, everybody. I forgot to put the ask me about, so feel free to ask me about anything, I guess. Top 3 highlights. So Linked Up happened last Wednesday on the 19th. I think it was a super successful event. We kind of spent the year looking at how that was going to go. We had a great turnout, kind of had a nice capacity in the East Lounge. Lots of people came up to me after saying that it was a great way to connect with professionals. Personally, I think it's the best way. It's a little bit more interesting than your classic career fair, talk to someone at a booth, give them your resume. I think a lot more people left with answers than they had questions, which is always good. So that was a success. Next thing is the tax clinic is currently underway. So that started about 2 weeks ago. It runs every day from 9 to 4 p.m. in room 80 of UCC. So just downstairs where the old wax clinic used to be, or the wax bar, right across from the hairdresser. So if you are a student or grad student, you can just walk in, or you can sign up online to have a slot set up for you. And one of the volunteers will help you fill out your taxes, which is awesome, and a completely free service for you. Coordinator events, kind of just wrapping those up for the year. We've had a couple. My charity coordinator, Sakshi, had a nice event in here on Sunday with some external organizations, just having some children in, having a nice children's party. Pride Ball's coming up. If anyone's interested, look out for that on the Pride USC Instagram. Going to be a good time in the wave. Again, tax clinic is running until the first week of April at Huron on Fridays. So every Friday from 9 to 4 as well. Those sessions we run on Huron. Can't remember the exact classroom that it is, but if you go on the tax clinic Instagram, it'll lead you there. There's also a video of how to get there. So super nice that we were able to set that up. It kind of sets a precedent for next year. Hopefully we can get Kings involved as well next year so that someone has access all over campus to get their taxes done. Professional development portfolio is starting to take shape. So now that we've done enough events and initiatives this year, I think whoever has that coordinator role next year will have a good idea of what that's going to look like. Again, they're going to be able to change it to what they see fit and how they want to change it, because that's kind of the idea of the role. But I think we've done a decent amount this year that they have some running to go off of. Upcoming is the USC Open on Saturday. So that is the charity golf tournament in support of the early outreach program. I'm happy to say that we sold out in just over 24 hours. There was a pretty big demand for it. I had a lot of people reaching out, asking if there was extra teams. Unfortunately, there wasn't. And I'm happy to say that because of the ticket sales and some of our generous sponsors, we were able to raise just under $17,000 for the early outreach program, which will be enough to send about 150 students to Western University for an entire weekend, feed them 3 meals a day, snacks, dance parties at the Wave, and 3 straight days of pretending to be a student and hopefully taking away some awesome lessons. So very excited for that, just praying for good weather now. And let's see, reach program. Yeah, so then the final thing that my portfolio will be doing, so our contracts end on the 16th, but the reach program is the 16th to the 18th. So that will be the very last thing I do here at the USC, which is kind of awesome because it's also how I got my start at the USC. So really full circle moment, but we had the largest amount of sign-up requests in program history. So the program's been around since 2004. It's been ongoing every single year, even during COVID. And this year we had like just an absolutely overwhelming number of people who wanted to be part of it. Lots of teachers, lots of principals messaging us all the way out to Strathroy as well. So word has been getting out in London about the program, which is fantastic. I hope that we can expand it in the next couple of years so that we can accommodate those extra students, because at the moment it's not in a place for growth, but it's good to know that there is interest. If anyone has any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. Still opportunities to get involved and volunteer as well. But that's basically it from me, if no one has any questions. Question, yes.
Sorry, can you please speak into the mic? Thank you.
All right. Brief question with regards to the funding, because I know the funding for Reach also changed quite a bit this year. I was wondering if this increased interest will mean more structured funding for it in the coming year?
Yeah, I think the idea is that in the long run, it's a participation between the USC, the City of London, and Western as an institution. We're lucky enough to still have the grant from the City of London. But these types of numbers that we're getting, telling us that students are interested, and Western telling us that they need students from within a 100-kilometer radius of the university enrolled at the university, is a good sign, because it kind of puts student services in a good position for next year to go to Western and say, hey, look, this is something that can be used not only as a good promo for the university, but also as a way for you to keep in touch with these students. If I were here for 5 years, my long-term plan would be to partner with the registrar on this and have them keep in touch with those students who come to the program, check in with them in grade 10 and 11 and make sure that they're still doing good. And that would kind of guarantee their success throughout high school, and would kind of retain those students as well to come to Western. But yeah, with charity events like this, it's always difficult because funding sometimes is not the priority for like large scale charity events, as the USC has like lots of other student facing events, and these technically aren't students of the school. So it really does take a lot of volunteers, I would say, to keep the funding structured. But with the help of Western and the City of London, I think that the funding could be set each year so that we don't have to rely on things like a charity golf tournament to make $17,000 to make sure that these students actually do get fed throughout the entire thing. But hopefully that's the
That
goal for
answers
the
it.
next couple of years. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you, guys.
We will now hear from Vice President Menon.
Okay, really quick blast through this. Michelle's gonna miss me because I'm getting ACL surgery on Friday, so I will be on medical leave for quite some time. If you need me, if you need anything urgent, email Emily. If not, email media@westernusc.ca. Yeah, so I'll be out for a little bit, but yeah, I kind of sad to end my term on that, but it is what it is. Virginia's given me a lot of hope that recovery will be great because she's around walking. Today she told me she rode a bike, so very excited. I know. So very excited for that. Okay. Hopefully. Okay, but what was it? Anyways, okay. Okay, top 3 highlights, Wix's Maharaja Ball. Yeah, I dressed my whole team up in saris. That was really, really funny. Okay, not funny, you guys look great. But yes, go white girls, go. Okay, number 2. The EDI office hosted the Black Student Scholarship Celebration Dinner. That was so nice to see all these students who got entrance scholarships in high school come and basically talk about what made them want to come to Western, how this scholarships impacted their admissions. So that was really, really great. Lastly was USA GA. I got to go, and that was a really, really fun time. It was a great time. You can ask me about that later. We have more time. Yeah, don't let me drive the boat. Okay. Updates. Can you tell this is my last council meeting? So okay, updates. Like Emily mentioned, divestment motion information campaign. Okay, so I've been working with the 3 authors of this motion to put out a USC Voice article that's going to be dropping very, very soon. Just kind of detailing more about the motion, like all the intricate details of it, why it came to be, what students can expect to see from the campaign, as well as working with our promotions and PR team to kind of figure out what the social media will look like and the in-person boothing, like the information we're going to give out. So that's looking pretty good. We're hoping to launch that very soon. And yeah, like Emily mentioned, Western is actually going to provide us a comment on that, which is really great. So we'll also be including some of that information alongside all the counselor stuff. Coordinator and AVP series on USC Voice. So as you guys know, or maybe you don't, but the part-time positions for all the coordinators and AVPs for the USC, so these are for next year, and their paid positions are open right now up until April 7th. So my portfolio oversees the USC Voice, like brand journalism platform. So we've been releasing stories every few days about like more information on what each of the coordinators do beyond just like what's on the job description. So if you're interested in any of the portfolios, if you know anyone who wants a part-time job for the next year, they can take a look at the USC Voice articles, and they go into a little bit more of tips and tricks on how to apply, what the actual role implies, and a little bit from like the 5 of us of like what it actually means to work under us. And the last one just came out today, which was student services. Spring open house, my coordinators and portfolio helped run spring open house this week for the USC, last weekend for the USC. So we just welcomed a bunch of incoming first year students that are coming in to the fall to Western. So we just did a little bit of like what the USC has to offer them, kind of give them more information about the services, all the programming. Lots of questions about health and dental services for some reason, but gave all that there. The USC EDI conference, Emily mentioned this. The USC tries to run something every year about like giving attendees more knowledge around the principles of EDI. This year, we focused specifically on how the USC can be better allies to racial minorities on campus. So this one was really cool because we pretty much ran it completely in-house. I got to work with the EDI committee to work on some different cases and have really good discussion around scenarios that could happen at the USC for that staff could be put in that involves racialized minorities. And then we also had a panel with some club presidents from cultural clubs to kind of talk about their experience being club presidents. So it was a really, really good way to kind of connect the USC full-time staff with some of the stuff that the students are doing on campus. Thought it was really impactful, so very proud of that initiative. Upcoming, okay, I don't know if you guys saw my email, but we are doing Voices again, which is a special edition of USC Voice, which is like, it's purely just stories submitted from students who work in the USC. So counselors are all welcome to submit a story. We also reached out to all the AVPs, coordinators, volunteers under different portfolios. So literally anybody can write for it. And if you do write for it, you get a $30 gift card and a gift bag, and potentially we might have a launch party for it. So, yeah.
Surprise.
Surprise! But I won't be there. Even bigger surprise. Deadline to submit is April 1st. If you have any questions, you can email me or my AVP Light. You'll probably get a reminder email from me tomorrow morning as well. So please submit. End of year recap on social. So my team right now is working together to pull a lot of information from all of the portfolios and services like the Wave and Spoke for our Instagram. I think a lot of feedback that we got this year is people want to see more transparency around like what the USC is actually doing, advocacy, but also service-wise. So this is kind of just a post we're just gonna put out of just like very high level. This is how many students access to this service. This is how many people or how many events this portfolio ran, and giving like the highlights and like a very overarching role of like what we've done this year. And finally, the USC census. So the census is out right now. This is the biggest survey of the year that the USC does. The prizes are really, really great. You could win Osheaga tickets or Revel tickets or Boots and Hearts tickets or Air Canada travel rewards. So you guys should take the survey. It really, really helps, especially for the incoming team, because we use those results to shape our advocacy for the next year, as well as our programming, our events, a week, literally everything. So please fill it out. And my coordinators are working really, really hard to get that number as high as possible. That's everything from me. Any questions? SE out.
I now call up Mr. Berry to provide the Board of Directors report.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, back in the corner. I'm going to try to keep this very quick. I only have two things that I really want to talk about. One is super easy. We approved the fiscal 2026 USC corporate budget. That one is good. Moving on. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but I talked about it before. I don't remember what meeting it was, but we have had a director who stepped away for personal reasons. And lucky enough, we had an outgoing director from the previous year who was willing to come back for a third year and kind of step in and take that position. So we got pretty lucky. The only problem with it is that happened the previous year as well. So we were kind of developing a bit of a pattern. So one of the things that we were talking about at our board meeting was kind of ways that we can kind of adjust and combat this kind of thing that's happening. One of the things that was floated out was this idea of an alternate director role. We haven't really fleshed it out too much in terms of like the hiring process and things like that. But the idea would be that the alternate director would kind of operate as they would get the same training as the directors. They would be hired at the same time, things like that. They would have the same attendance policy as us, same speaking rights in the meetings. The only difference would be that they wouldn't have the title of director, and they also wouldn't have the voting rights. And then the way that it would kind of help us combat the issue I was talking about is that if we do have a director who steps away for whatever reason, the alternate would fill in that role, and only then would they have voting rights, and so that we wouldn't have any vacancies at the director level. Yeah, and then just the reason for the alternate director to be like present and participating in the conversations as they go, even if they aren't voting on things, is just the idea to have them in the event that somebody does step away, they are ready to go at that moment. Yeah, I don't sit on the HR committee, but I'm sure this idea is kind of getting fleshed out this cycle, and I'll hear a bit more about it in the next board meeting, so I can kind of talk about that a bit more. Well, we talked about that last board meeting. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's all for me. But yeah, thanks, guys. Is there any questions? I think we're good. Cool.
We will now move on to our We will now move on to our 4 action section of the meeting. Firstly, with the motion to approve the executive reports. The motion reads, be it resolved that council accept the executive reports for March 2025. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Sharma. Are there any questions regarding the motion? President Kalajian.
I had my laptop active for so long, it logged me out of the point solutions. What's the?
Oh.
We had to start a new one.
Okay.
Did you send in the Slack? Dane's sending in Slack.
I'll just give a second for that before we continue. The session ID is 732936. Okay, Council, we're still in session, so please keep that in mind. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. All right, are there? Oh, okay, the motion passes. Thank you. The second motion is the motion to approve the anti-gender-based and sexual violence policy paper. The motion reads, whereas the USC's policy paper addressing anti-gender-based and sexual violence is soon to expire from the USC's policy library, whereas post-secondary students face disproportionately high rates of gender-based and sexual violence, and Western University has some of the highest rates in the province, whereas advocating for the effective prevention of and response to gender-based and sexual violence is a critical priority for the USC, aligning with our mission of fostering an inclusive campus community, whereas the university and external affairs portfolios have run consultations, conducted research, and produced an anti-gender-based and sexual violence policy paper, be it resolved that Council approves the anti-gender-based and sexual violence policy paper. Can I please have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ratanashi. Sorry. Ratanshi. I'm so sorry. Are there any questions regarding the motion?
My speaking rights over to Mariana.
Okay, hey everyone, we'll do this really quick. Just Michelle and I are gonna do a little bit of talking before this. So I know it reads anti-gender and sexual sexual violence paper, we did change it as per comments from the standing committee to gender-based and sexual violence prevention and response paper. Just to quickly go over kind of what the position paper is. So position papers are the advocacy documents that the University Affairs and External Affairs portfolios will use to kind of guide the advocacy efforts in the future. So we put we pull the specific recommendations from these papers, and then the body text is kind of there to also support those recommendations when the UA and EA meet with stakeholders to discuss these topics. So for some considerations on these some considerations we want to go over is that I know there were comments on kind of awareness and promotion as a recommendation. We just wanted to say that we don't normally put recommendations based on awareness and promotion into our position papers just because it's kind of a given, and ultimately it would be included in every policy stance regardless. So yeah, we are really trying to prioritize things that we can advocate for in the next couple of years, since these papers are renewed every 3 to 4 years. So we put the recommendations that are the most important for students that we would realistically be able to advocate on over the next 3 to 4 years.
So some other considerations, or at least one key one, is everything that's in an USA policy paper technically counts in the USC stance, and USA, I was one of the authors on their GBSV paper. It's 116 pages. It's very, very thorough. So I will note that some were omitted from this paper because they're included in one. And we wanted to avoid kind of duplicating that work. And then we also just like kind of from both of us want to say thank you so much for all of the feedback that we got at committees, as well as those who took the time to meet with us one-on-one about this paper. It brought forward substantial gaps and it pointed us in a direction to be added. So you can see on the motion that's on the agenda, a new version of the paper is attached, but the recommendations haven't changed. Motion hasn't changed because, as Mari pointed out, like most of what you're voting on is the recommendations. And then this new version was also sent to both of our standing committees ahead of time as well. And although we didn't come up with any of the new recommendations to be added, we did action a lot of the feedback that we got through some significant additions to the body text, including a lot of relevant data surrounding groups that are impacted by gender-based and sexual violence, as well as also some acknowledgements of where there's, massive data gaps for these specific groups. And then we also expanded in some places on the importance of ensuring that these recommendations are like actioned and implemented in a way that will have the biggest impact possible on those who are the most at risk. And then again, just to point out, the body text is really what the advocacy VPs, so us, but at this point, successors, will use to build their arguments. And so that will always be taken into a lot of account by our successors and in all stakeholder meetings.
Thank you both. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate or amendments? Are there any objections? Okay, Council, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote. The motion passes. Next, we have the motion to approve amendments to the Advocacy Steering Committee terms of reference. The motion reads, whereas the USC conducts continuous review of all documents and its policy manual on a rolling basis, whereas the Advocacy Steering Committee terms of reference requires minor changes that aim to improve the clarity, transparency, and organization of the document, ensuring that constituency council presidents can effectively fulfill their responsibilities. Be it resolved that Council approves the proposed revisions to the Advocacy Steering Committee terms of reference. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Nasir. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate or amendments? Are there any objections? Okay, the Echo 360 is not working for this motion, so we will vote via placard. So at this time, please raise your placard if you are for the motion. Okay, thank you. If you are abstaining from the motion, please raise your placard. If you are opposing the motion, please raise your placard. The motion has passed unanimously. Next, we have the motion to approve amendments to bylaw number 1. The motion reads, whereas the USC conducts continuous review of all documents in its policy manual on a rolling basis, whereas bylaw number 1 contains minor inconsistencies, outdated terminology, and requires updates to membership details that need to be corrected to maintain clarity and accuracy, be it resolved that Council approves the proposed revisions to bylaw number 1. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Matsukawa. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Are there any points of debate or amendments? Are there any objections? Okay, please proceed to Echo 360 to vote on the motion. The motion passes. We will now move on to hear any questions or comments from the Western community. Oh, okay. Are there any new business items to be introduced to the council floor at this time? Keep in mind, council, only time-sensitive items will be considered. Okay. That's the end of our last in-person meeting. Everyone is welcome to take their placards home or pick them up from Dane's office. Please RSVP for the council gala so we can see each other next week. There will be lots of food and it'll be our last hurrah as a council in person. We can now move to terminate the meeting. Can I please have a mover? Councillor Malabanan, and can I please have a seconder? Councillor Triantafilakis. Are there any objections to terminating the meeting? Seeing as there are no objections, the meeting is terminated at 10:11 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.